Ibrahim Traoré, a true biography of Burkina Faso president. In the far western reaches of Burkina Faso, in a quiet farming village called Kéra, a boy was born on March 14, 1988. The land there is flat and open, with dusty winds that sweep across fields of millet and sorghum. The families of Kéra knew the rhythm of the seasons, the first rains that soften the soil, the green shoots that promise a good harvest, the lean months when grain stores run low. In such a place, children learned early to work beside their parents, to rise before dawn, to value resilience and humility. That boy was Ibrahim Traoré. His parents were farmers, respected for their hard work but never wealthy. Neighbors remember Ibrahim as a thoughtful child, observant, serious beyond his years. He spent his earliest school days in Bondokuy, sometimes walking long distances under the sun with a battered notebook tucked under his arm. Teachers say he was quiet in class but quick to grasp lessons. He read with curiosity, and when chores were done he would sometimes sit in the shade of a neem tree, watching the horizon as if he were thinking about something far beyond the village. In his teenage years, Ibrahim moved to Bobo-Dioulasso, the country's second-largest city, to continue his education. It was there that he first encountered the restless energy of a larger world, a city with busy markets, radios blaring news and music, and the talk of politics that often drifted through street cafes. He stayed focused on his studies and earned his baccalaureate in 2006, gaining entry to the University of Ouagadougou, where he chose to study science. At that point his life seemed set on a path toward the classroom or perhaps a laboratory. But the wider story of Burkina Faso was taking a darker turn. The country had experienced coups and long years of political uncertainty. By the mid-2000s, the great belt of land stretching across the Sahel, from Mali to Niger, was becoming a new front line of extremist violence. Reports of attacks on rural communities and ambushes on soldiers filtered south. For a young man with a strong sense of duty, the idea of staying safely in lecture halls began to feel wrong. In 2009, Ibrahim Traoré made a decision that would change the course of his life. He left the university and joined the Burkinabè Armed Forces. He trained at the Georges Nemeneo Military Academy, a tough initiation that demanded endurance as much as skill. The cadets rose before dawn, ran through the heat, learned the discipline of military order. Among them, Ibrahim was not known for loud speeches but for steady work and a readiness to share in the same hardships as his comrades. That quiet persistence earned him respect and, over time, promotion to the rank of captain. His service soon took him beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Assigned to the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali, he witnessed the harsh realities of a region in turmoil. In dusty towns scarred by conflict, he saw the faces of families uprooted by violence and the weary courage of soldiers trying to hold fragile lines against insurgents. Those experiences impressed on him a lasting belief that without security there can be no real progress, and that leadership in such times demands more than speeches. It demands presence and sacrifice. By the early 2020s, his own country had entered a severe crisis. Insurgent groups were attacking villages and convoys. Thousands of people fled their homes and lived as displaced families. On the front lines, soldiers often felt abandoned, lacking the supplies and support they needed. In the capital, governments changed but the violence spread. Among younger officers there grew a grim conviction that something fundamental had to change if the country were to survive. On September 30, 2022, that conviction turned into action. Captain Traoré and a circle of loyal soldiers moved against the government in Ouagadougou. The takeover was swift and largely bloodless, but it shocked the world outside Burkina Faso. Inside the country, reactions were divided. Some saw it as one more chapter in a history of coups, others as a desperate bid to save the nation. A week later, on October 6, 2022, Ibrahim Traoré was sworn in as interim president. At just 34 years old, he became the youngest head of state in the world. Power did not soften him. Those who met him after his rise to the presidency often described him as reserved, still carrying himself more like a soldier than a politician. He reorganized the army and placed new emphasis on the volunteers for the defense of the homeland, local villagers who had taken up arms to protect their own communities. He traveled often to the field, visiting soldiers and civilians rather than lingering in ceremonial halls. On the international stage, Traoré pursued a break with decades of dependence on former colonial powers. He sought closer ties with neighboring states facing the same threat. In 2023, Burkina Faso joined Mali and Niger to create the Alliance of Sahel States, pledging to coordinate defense and resist insurgencies together. Supporters welcomed the move as a sign of regional solidarity and self-reliance. Critics warned that the new alignment could deepen isolation from traditional partners and make rebuilding more difficult. At home, opinions about him remain mixed. Many citizens regard him as a young, decisive leader who stepped forward when others faltered. Others worry about the risks of prolonged military rule and press for a clear path back to civilian government. Aid organizations continue to plead for more protection of civilians and for help for the millions displaced by conflict. Traoré himself still describes his role in the language of duty rather than ambition. He speaks of villages he once knew as a boy, of farmers who simply want to work their fields without fear, of children whose futures depend on peace returning to the countryside. He has said more than once that lasting progress will come only after the land is secure enough for families to return home, rebuild their lives, and send their children back to school. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is still being written. It began in a farming village under the Sahelian sun, moved through the barracks of a young soldier, continued across the border in peacekeeping missions, and brought him unexpectedly to the highest office in his country. It is the story of a man who rose in a time of national peril, and of a nation still struggling to find stability and hope. Whether history remembers him as a reformer who steered his country toward renewal, as a soldier who held the line in dark times, or simply as one leader in a long struggle for peace in the Sahel will be decided in years to come. For now, he stands at the center of that struggle, the farmer's son turned soldier president, carrying the weight of his people's expectations as the wind continues to sweep across the wide plains of Burkina Faso.
This is the true story of Ibrahim Traoré.